For most discovery call, it's honestly like a waste of time for the prospects. You think about it, the salesperson really just has their agenda and they're trying to get certain information, but it's not beneficial to the actual prospect. Why don't we just give them a demo and call it quits? In this episode, we're going to talk about how you can improve your discovery call so you can see way more success and get rid of the garbage that, the average traditional salespeople usually do. This is going to elevate your game 100%. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode today, we have an amazing guest. His name is Mr. David Newman. He is a sales consultant, an author, an entrepreneur, and someone who knows a thing or two about selling, considering his years of success, working with individuals like you and me, working with consultants and coaches as well. In this conversation today, we're going to talk about some principles from his book. It's called Do It Selling. You can find more information about David in the show notes. But a concept that David goes over in this episode is really that we need to transform our discovery calls. As you know, our podcast is dedicated to two things. One, helping you build pipeline, 3 to 5x your sales pipeline. And two, converting twice as many of those deals into actually closed business with new clients. That's what we're going to talk about in this episode, specifically around the discovery call. How do you make sure you're getting quality deals in the pipeline? And how do you make sure these deals actually progress towards conversion? If this is your first time listening to our show, you're going to want to subscribe because we're going to provide episodes like this every single week, twice a week, to help you in your sales game. If you haven't done so already, take this link, share it with a teammate so they can take advantage of it. As we dive in, you get a chance to learn a little bit more about David and why he's so passionate about improving our discos. David, welcome to the show.
Donald, great to be here. This will be fun.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I feel the discovery call is by far one of the most important meetings. However, it's one of the most overlooked. And there are many different people with advice and strategies and ideas, but you've definitely been there. You have research. You have a latest book about the topic and about helping sales professionals, and some of these principles come from that. So we'll talk about that. But for some of our folks who may not have known you before, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you do, man?
Sure. So my name is David Newman. I run a company called Do It Marketing, and we are a mentoring, coaching, and done-for-you services company. And we specialize really in thought leadership marketing. So we work with a lot of service professionals. We work with a lot of consultants, coaches, trainers, people that are in the business of selling their expertise.
Well, love it. So you have you've had one or two discovery calls in your lifetime.
One or two, yes. I've had probably more than 10, actually.
Fair enough. All right, well, let's talk about that. What's wrong with most of the discovery calls that you are aware of, whether it's from client perspective or from your past experience, or just give me a lowdown. What's going on?
Yeah, well, I think there is a lot of surface level conversation, and a really great discovery call goes deep fast. So think about a guppy kind of nibbling for crumbs at the surface of the ocean versus a shark that goes deep early and then stays deep to really uncover what's going on and really get the most juice out of every possible sales conversation so that we get to the meat early. The clients or the prospects, they know that we're serious and committed to helping them, and we're getting actionable, valuable information. One of my beliefs that I talk about in the Do It Selling book is prospects will close themselves if you take them down a path of discovery where doing business with you really becomes their idea more so than it's your idea.
If you can go back to this idea, again, love this, so many ideas here. Why do people do the surface level stuff though?
I think it's two things, Donald. Number one is a desire to be liked, and then number two is a desire to sound smart. So let's start with desire to sound smart. Is I say, well, Donald, our company, we're having a real problem with retention. And because you want to say, well, I'm so experienced, this is my arena, of course you're having problems with retention, I know exactly what you mean, we ask nothing about that problem. We go, yeah, got it. And then we move on to something else, or we move on to ask another surface level question about their retention problem. Someone says to me, hey, David, we have a really bad retention problem. I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to ask 17 follow-up questions because I am not committed to sounding smart. I am committed to finding out what's really going on. And I want them to specify, I want them to clarify, and I want them to quantify. What does that retention problem mean in terms of dollars, hours, percentages, wasted time, recruiting costs, rework, lost time, lost profit, people problems, profit problems, process problems that are all caused by this retention challenge? I want to really dig in like an investigative journalist. And one of the key principles that I mentioned early on in the Do It Selling book is take off your sales hat, put on your investigative journalist hat. Let's say that we're watching Oprah, we're watching 60 Minutes. We're grilling these people into what's really going on. What's the issue behind the issue, the problem behind the problem, the number behind the number, and really finding out what is the problem they're looking to solve and what is the outcome that they're looking to create, but extreme specifics and extreme personalization to that prospect, that company, and the context that they're experiencing that problem in. Otherwise, we don't stand a chance of selling anything to anyone.
Do you feel that we find, so go back to the other one about being liked. What about that part? Because I love everything you shared there. And I think anyone who's listened to this, that was a price of admission.
Just so being liked, I'll tell you how being liked shows up. And maybe folks listening, we can do a little self-diagnosis here. When we start doing a whole bunch of free consulting, when we start giving answers because we figure, oh, we're here to give value on the call. I want them to like me. I want them, I want to build rapport by really adding value. And I want to be as helpful as I possibly can. And if I'm helpful, then they're going to like me. Now, the problem with that is 99% of sales professionals think that being helpful is about talking, sharing ideas, sales presentation, free consulting. Let me tell you what we've done with other clients. Let me tell you what you might want to think about. Here's a strategy that's worked great with our other customers. When you do that, clients' eyes glaze over. And think about it this way, and I'm sure that the seasoned sales professionals right away know what I'm talking about. Low-level prospects, they want their questions answered. High-level prospects, they want their answers questioned. So you need to go into that discovery not worrying about, will they like me? Will I add enough value? But am I going to ask the right questions? And am I going to get the prospect talking early and often so that the conversation is about their experience of the problem and not my recommendations for a solution? Because if you look at the overall sales process, which in my view has kind of 4 parts to it, diagnosis, prescription, treatment, outcome, when we go right to, hey, here's some ideas, we're jumping right to step 3. We're jumping right to treatment. And we haven't even found out what's wrong with the patient yet. And so that's a problem when we're so concerned about being liked.
Interesting. And when you're saying all of this, I'm sitting here nodding my head because I can relate. I remember being that sales professional. I wanted to be like, I'm a people pleaser, a people person. And I figured, if the more outgoing you can be, the closer you can connect with your prospect, the better you're going to be successful. And that proved to be not the case. It wasn't until I got formal training I realized that. But one of the things that you shared with me, and which helps to solve this problem of being liked and trying to express your knowledge base, is this idea of you said go deep, and talked about the difference between the guppy and the shark, but you also talk about this concept of approaching it like a consultant. Can you talk to me a little bit about that and how you utilize that in your discos?
Totally. So my very first question in any sort of discovery call would sound something like this. Hey, Donald, great talking to you today. Give me a quick sketch of your professional journey up to this point with this problem. What have you done to get to where you are today when it comes to problem X or issue Y? And then we'll spend the rest of the call on where you'd like to go next. And then the second question that gets them into a total different frame of mind is, Donald, for the purpose of our call today, do you mind if I treat you like a fee-paid client? Do you mind if I treat you like a fee-paid client during this call? So think about what that does. Think about the context that, you know what, Donald, let's not worry about buying and selling. Let's just pretend that we're starting our work together, right? So when you ask that question, a prospect will typically come back with, okay, I'm just curious, David, what does that mean exactly? And my answer to what does that mean exactly is, well, it means a couple of things. Like with my fee-paid clients, we are going to cut to the chase. We're going to uncover what's really going on. And what that means is I'm going to need your permission to interrupt and redirect our conversation if I feel that the conversation is going off track and that we might not be heading in a direction that would maximize the value of the call for you today. Number two is I'm going to, be brutally honest with you. I'm not going to sugarcoat. So I'm going to tell you what you need to hear and not necessarily what you want to hear. And then, at the end of that conversation, we'll see if there's a logical next step or not. Do I have your permission to do those things? Yes. Oh, that would be great. Now think about all the sales calls that have gone off the rails. All the sales calls where the prospect had verbal diarrhea. You're looking at the clock and it's like, oh my God, we're at minute 27 of a 30-minute call and I've received no actionable information. This person is just pontificating. They're just complaining and griping. I'm trying to interrupt. They're not letting me. I can't get a word in edgewise, as opposed to true sales leadership. So salesperson as leader of this conversation, where you are saying, well, hold on. Okay, I got that. Let's not go further in that direction. I'm curious. A minute ago, you said X. Tell me more about problem X. And so now you're shaping the conversation. You're directing, redirecting, interrupting. And the other thing that you're doing with the permission to tell them what they need to hear, not necessarily what they want to hear, is sometimes prospects have these self-soothing delusions, and they just think that a problem they describe to you as stage 4 cancer, it's like a scraped knee. No, it's not that bad. We'll probably deal with that in-house. And it's like, wait a second. You just said that this is the CEO's number one priority. And then you're saying, well, let's revisit this in 6 months. What do you mean, let's revisit this in 6 months? I'm confused right now. So again, you have permission to be real. You have permission to be honest. And there's nothing that lowers the prospect's shields like being treated like a client. So think of it this way. Here's the soundbite. The more you treat prospects like clients and customers, the more clients and customers you will get.
Shoot, man, one more time for the people in the back.
Yes. The more that you treat prospects like clients and customers that they've already bought, the more you will get clients and customers who buy.
I love it. I'm a big fan of this concept. I like it. And when you said that, this was just like an example, right? But when you told me in this role play scenario example here, when you said, Donald, permission to treat you like a client, in my mind, I think like, wow, I get an exclusive opportunity. I'm getting something more than the others. I'm not getting surface level, sales talk. I'm getting the real David now. And again, this was just like it's a podcast episode. We're just doing an example, but that's the mindset that I really thought of. So imagine what a customer, when no salesperson has ever done that to them before, does something like that. It changes the game, changes the dynamics. Love it.
And then the other thing that, as far as this experience that they're having with you, at the end of the call, it's like, well, should I buy? Should I not buy? I wonder what it's like to work with Donald. I wonder if he understands my business. I wonder if he's going to ask the right questions. All of those things are out the window.
Yep.
So now it's not should I buy, should I not buy? You've already had 30 or 45 minutes of the experience of a client. Now in the prospect's mind, the question is It's not yes or no. It's this was fantastic. Do I want to continue? Because now I've gotten the experience of what it's like to be a client of Donald, and this is perfect. This is exactly what we want. It's exactly what we need. It's not, hey, trust me, it's going to be great when you buy. It's trust me, it's great right now. Do you want to continue?
Amen to that. Love it. One of the other things that we touched based on, David, was the idea of the questions. What kind of questions should we ask
Oh,
as
yes.
a salesperson in a discovery call? Some of those effective questions. You mind talking about some of those specific questions that we can go through?
Oh, absolutely. So this is my favorite part because this is where the rubber meets the road. Folks listening to this episode can start selling differently today, tomorrow, right away. So let's future pace this concept of they're already a client.
Okay.
So the questions that you would ask, so let's pretend that instead of this entire conversation is happening before they buy from you, they just bought, how would you begin? Well, the way most sales professionals would begin is, okay, how do you see this ending up if all goes well? What would be a home run result for you? And what else, and what else, and what else? We really emphasize that and what else question because it's super, super important. That's where you uncover level 2, level 3, level 4 problems and goals and situations and outcomes. Another question is, I'm curious, what does that mean for you personally? And then follow up with, and what does that mean for you professionally? And if we solve this, or if we don't, what does that mean for you financially? Are there bonuses? Are there incentives tied to this? Promotions, raises, anything like that? How would you describe our ultimate destination? And then my favorite question that you have in your back pocket for all of these is, can you put a number on it? 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 Because you want to extract from your prospect the dollars, the hours, the percentages, the savings, the profits, the hassles, the rework, all of those kinds of questions. Now, sometimes we also want to make sure that we have all the economic buyers involved in a situation. So the most artful way that I have found and that I recommend people ask this discovery question is, who else will notice these improvements? Not who else is involved in this decision that every other salesperson might be asking. Who else will notice these improvements? And do you think that'll be a big deal to them? I'm curious, how so? And who else, and who else, and who else? So just like a moment ago, I said, and what else is your omnibus question to uncover issues, and who else is your omnibus question to uncover other players? Now, you can also say, well, help me with some math here. Based on what you've described, what do you think the bottom line impact will be in terms of dollars? Interesting. Does that come out of your budget? Does that impact raises or bonuses or not really? Now, let's say that you have some objections that you typically get or that you typically want to short circuit. Sometimes people go, oh, we're at the finish line, and they say, Donald, this was so great, so helpful. You know what? We have a lot of other competing priorities that we're going to tackle first. Call me in 6 months. Imagine if one of your discovery questions was, well, Donald, there are probably some competing priorities to solving this, right? I'm curious, what are those? And let them tell you before it becomes an objection. Let them tell you what some of those competing priorities are. So this is about putting the in the ways in the way, because when you raise the objection or you ask about the objection first, it takes it off the table for them. It neutralizes that objection. So the other set of questions that I find really, really helpful that also speak to urgency and priority and timing are what I call the now questions. So I'm curious, Donald, what made you book this call now? Why is now the time to fix this? They say something else to you. What's important about that right now? Why is this a priority right now? What happens if you don't fix this now? Gosh, that's really interesting. Did someone urge you to look into this now? Did you have a talk with your CFO? Did you have a talk with your VP of sales? Or did someone urge you to look into this now? Does this need to be fixed like right now? Oh my gosh, we're compiling our annual report and the CEO's looking at these numbers and the numbers are not where they need to be. And that's what's prompting this call. Wouldn't you want to know that? Wouldn't you
Yes.
want to know that? You absolutely would. So all of these different questions are designed to either quantify or specify the problem, uncover other players, other issues, other priorities, other urgencies. And really, it's about qualifying and disqualifying. If someone shows up on a call, they don't have a problem or the problem isn't a priority, I'm not talking to the right person, it's not the right time, wouldn't you want to find that out before wasting 3 more sales calls, 2 more meetings, and a whole bunch of bandwidth on a prospect who's never going to buy? So we're sometimes afraid to ask these questions because these questions reveal the truth. I think you can always sell more with the truth than with self-soothing delusions on the prospect side and on the salesperson side.
Come on, man. There's so much in that. So let's go back to a couple points here that I want to point out. One, those questions of the sequence, the way that you ask who else needs to be involved without saying who else needs to be involved. I thought that was brilliant. Also, the time frame questions, getting them to reveal to you what's going on now. I love the idea of the objection as well. I'm a big believer in that. If I bring up the objection before it becomes an issue, then it doesn't become an issue again. And I really like the way you framed that out as well. All of these are just like, they're flawless. I mean, it's like brilliant, right? Just and unfortunately, I think what happens for many sales professionals, again, we get into the moment, and everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. The great philosopher Mike Tyson. But this comes from practice. This comes from repetition. It comes from doing it over and over and over. And it's not just practicing on your prospect. You don't do that. Practice with your teammates. Practice in the mirror. Practice while you're driving. You got to make sure you're prepared, because once you get in there, it becomes muscle memory. Absolutely love it. Brilliant concept, man. The last thing I want to go to is the idea of going negative. I think this ties very closely with the prospecting calls that we're talking about, with those specific questions. Talk to me about this concept of the negative.
Yes. Well, this is, again, it's a different flavor of objection busting in advance. So sometimes we get put off because of other priorities or bad timing, or, hey, we're going to use somebody else for this, or hey, we're going to do it ourselves, or hey, we're going to just we're going to leave this alone. So the go negative questions, imagine if you put your own objections on the table. You do not let the prospect go to the objections. We go to the objections, and we kind of put a little pressure on that wound. So the go negative questions are, maybe we shouldn't do this. So I'll give you a starter set of your go negative questions. Donald, this has been really great, and I have kind of a silly question to ask you here, but I think it's important. What if you don't do anything and then shut your mouth? What if you don't do anything? And then some follow-up questions, some additional prompting questions. What if nothing changes? Interesting. And what's the downside of that? Well, that doesn't sound so bad. Wouldn't that be easier? What are the consequences? And then the big mama of all of these questions is, would it be okay if things were just the same at this time next year? Now, all of these questions are actually designed to have the prospect look at you totally stone cold serious and say, oh my God, no, that's unacceptable. Are you insane? Now, again, I'll give you a bonus question.
Yeah.
And this really trips people into like crazy mode. If all these go negatives, right, you're trying to kind of parse all of this out.
Yep.
And you say, well, in my experience, Donald, most of these problems like you describe, they usually solve themselves. Isn't that what you've experienced? Isn't that what you found? Most of these problems kind of go away on their own, right? Something else comes up, someone else will solve it. No, these problems never go away on their own. In fact, it's gotten worse in the last 3 months. It hasn't gotten better. So have them tell you, we can't wait, we can't delay, it's not going to solve itself, there's no other option, we can't fix it ourselves, we can't let it go. Now, quick PS, quick note on these.
Sure.
The come from, your attitude, and your tone of voice is critically important with these go negative questions. Because if you ask them flippantly, or you ask them in a way that comes across as uncaring, you will absolutely sound like a jerk. So think of the tonality of these couple of questions. Well, what if you don't do anything? What if nothing changes? What's the downside of that? That doesn't sound so bad. You sound like a jerk. You sound like an idiot. If the come from is truly to find out what's going on, and it's from a place of caring and empathy, and you're genuinely curious about, why is now the time to fix this?
Mm-hmm.
And, also you can have some softening phrases like, crazy question for you, Donald. What if you don't do anything? What if this just continues month after month, year after year? Is it really that bad? Now, when I ask it that way, and I'm genuinely curious, and I'm asking like a peer and like a friend, and again, investigative journalist, right? Why does Oprah have people cry on her couch when she had her show? It's because she asked these incredibly direct, incredibly penetrating questions in a tone like she's your best friend. Mm-hmm. And she cares, and she's genuinely curious, and she wants to help. So you could take an Oprah transcript of the most amazing revelations that people have ever given Oprah Winfrey. You can read them in a tone where you sound like a jerk, and it would not have sounded the way that it sounded when she asked those questions like a master interviewer. Yeah. So the come from, who you are when you ask these questions, makes all the difference between getting actionable, valuable sales intelligence or turning off your prospect by sounding like a jerk.
Yeah, because that's was one of the things what I was thinking about. How do you not sound like a jerk or make it sound gimmicky? Because the last thing you want is to, make it seem like, okay, well, it's like it's just like a sales guy trying to do a little, trick on me.
That's
but
right.
I think when you go back to the tonality, when you come back to the context, I think that makes a difference. And I like the idea you mentioned the softeners, because you can even say something. In my experience, to be honest with you, David, many times when I work with clients, we go down the path, we go through this situation, and you mentioned a couple competing priorities that could take over for this. I mean, why do you feel that this is something that you must solve right now? I don't know, but you can go to negative, use a negative phrase on that. But I can see how that makes it sound so much better rather than just a salesperson reading off a checklist. That's why we got to practice.
Totally. Well, and it's funny because as I rattle these off, ordinarily the pace of I'm kind of compressing all of this for the sake of our conversation today, Donald. So you would ordinarily give a lot of space and a lot of time, right? So you ask this question, you shut your mouth, and you let the prospect really process and really think. And so you wouldn't ask these questions one after the other, like I'm giving it to the audience right now, because then it would sound like an interrogation. And that element of curiosity and caring would be missing when we ask it real time. It's like what the Navy SEALs talk about, slow down to go faster, right? We literally slow down the breathing, we slow down the pace of the call, and we start getting real. We start getting real with the prospect. And it's all about your come from, and it's all about your tone, and you will get some amazing, amazing answers. And frankly, remember, the mantra is that clients don't argue with their own data. So clients will agree with whatever came out of their mouth. They will rarely agree with whatever comes out of the salesperson's mouth. So it's very important to get them to say these things out loud, because that then is their version of reality and their version of the truth.
Love it, man. David, if there's one thing you want folks listening to this episode to walk away, what's that one major piece of advice?
An early sales mentor of mine, when I was hot and heavy into learning all of these different strategies and methodologies, and I was reading like 5 sales books a week, he says to me, David, slow down. You seem really committed to being a better salesperson. Don't worry so much about that. Be a better person, and more sales will happen.
I love it. Love it, man. Well, David, if folks want to get in touch with you to get access to your book, how did they go about doing so?
So 2 resources for folks. One is the Do It Selling book at doitselling.com, and all the companion tools and resources and free training that comes with the book is available there. And if people want to have an exploratory chat and see how we can help you raise your sales game, That's simply doitmarketing.com/call.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and put that in our show notes so folks can get access to it. David, thank you for taking the time to come on the show today. Thanks so much for your insights.
Donald, such a pleasure.
That was David Newman. If you want to find David Newman, go back to the link in the show notes. You can connect with him on LinkedIn. But better yet, go and check out his book, because there's a link there as well that give you access to free resources, as well as you can purchase a book and tell David how you heard him here on the Sales Evangelist podcast. I really appreciate you being here. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this and actually sharing it with your team. Like, that's one of the important parts. You can take all this content, but you got to share it with other people and you got to apply it. When you have accountability and those amazing things in place, magic starts happening. Check out our sponsors as well, because they have some amazing deals that you could take advantage of so you can help improve your sales game and get you to the next level. As always, we're here committed to helping you 3 to 5x your sales pipeline. We want to help you close twice as many deals. I want you to raise your level of thinking. Take advantage of any of our sales training programs so they can help you, or one of our cohorts. I know this thing can guide you and help you to be able to maximize your sales performance. And this episode today can really help you when it comes to the disco. I look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to seeing you go out and do big things.